The mailman suddenly stopped on the sidewalk. Right in front of him, a tiny white puppy stood on its back legs, shaking, begging. Its little paws reached toward him like it was trying to speak. Its eyes were wide, terrified, desperate. Something was very wrong. The puppy barked once, then ran forward and grabbed his pant leg with its tiny teeth, pulling him, trying to drag him toward the house behind it. The porch was covered with old newspapers, the mailbox was overflowing, and the front door was slightly open. The house was completely silent. The mailman swallowed hard. He had no idea yet, but what he was about to find inside that house would change everything. But before we continue, make sure to like the video and subscribe to the channel. And I'm curious, where are you watching from today? Write your country in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel around the world. Now let's go back to the story. Maple Street was always quiet in the morning. It was one of those peaceful neighborhoods where nothing unusual ever happened. Mailman Henry Walker had delivered letters there for almost 15 years. He knew every house, every dog, every neighbor. The warm sunlight filtered through the maple trees. Sprinklers clicked softly across green lawns. A few dogs barked lazily behind fences. Cats stretched on front porches. It was just another normal day. Until suddenly, it wasn't. As Henry walked toward house number 14, something white moved near the path. At first, he thought it was a plastic bag blowing in the wind, but when he looked closer, he froze. Standing perfectly still in the middle of the walkway was a tiny white puppy, fluffy, small, trembling. Henry blinked in surprise. Usually dogs barked at him or ran toward him excitedly, but this puppy didn't move. It just stared at him, frozen with fear. Its chest moved quickly as it breathed. Its ears drooped low. "Hey there, little guy," Henry said gently. "You scared me for a second." The puppy didn't run. Instead, something strange happened. Slowly, it lifted its front paws off the ground and stood upright on its back legs, shaking badly. Henry frowned. Dogs didn't normally do that unless something was terribly wrong. The puppy made a small whining sound, then another. Its tail didn't wag. It wasn't asking for food. It wasn't playing. It was begging. "Whoa, what's wrong?" Henry whispered. The puppy stepped backward, then turned and ran toward the porch. Halfway there, it stopped, turned around, and barked softly. Then it ran back to Henry, grabbed his pant leg again, and pulled. Henry's heart began to beat faster. This wasn't random. The puppy wanted him to follow, and suddenly, Maple Street didn't feel peaceful anymore. Henry had met hundreds of dogs during his job. Some barked, some chased him, some wagged their tails happily, but never, not once had he seen a puppy behave like this. This little dog wasn't scared of him, it wasn't protecting territory, and it wasn't playing. It was desperate. The puppy tugged harder on his pant leg, letting out small, nervous cries. Henry crouched down slowly. "It's okay," he said softly. "I won't hurt you." To his surprise, the puppy ran closer and pressed its tiny head into his hand. Its whole body was shaking. Henry could feel its tiny heartbeat racing. Something terrible had happened, but the puppy suddenly pulled away again, tapped his knee with its paw, then ran back toward the porch, stopping again at the bottom step, looking back at him, waiting. That's when Henry finally understood. This puppy wasn't asking for attention, it was asking for help. Henry slowly stood up. Now the house looked different. The porch was messy. Several newspapers were stacked near the door. Some were wet from morning dew. He checked the date. 3 days old. That wasn't normal. Mrs. Foster lived here. She always picked up her newspaper every morning without fail. The mailbox was full too, letters stuffed tightly inside. 3 days of mail, untouched. A strange feeling ran down Henry's spine. The puppy scratched nervously at the door, whimpering. Henry gently touched its head. "What happened in there?" he asked quietly. The puppy pressed against his leg, as if begging him not to leave. Henry reached for the doorknob. It slowly creaked open. The door hadn't even been locked. A stale smell drifted out. The house felt wrong, too quiet. "Mrs. Foster?" Henry called carefully. No answer. The puppy ran inside, then stopped halfway down the hallway, turning back, barking urgently, like it was saying, "Come quickly." Henry hesitated for a moment. Mail carriers weren't supposed to enter houses, but rules didn't matter right now, not when a terrified puppy was begging for help. "All right, little hero," Henry whispered. Then he opened the door. Inside the dim bedroom, the scene stopped him cold. A small table was knocked over, broken glass covered the floor, medicine pills were scattered everywhere, and near the bed, lying weakly on the floor, was Mrs. Foster. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow. She looked barely conscious. "Mrs. Foster?" Henry gasped. He rushed to her side and dropped to his knees. The puppy ran to her arm, licking her trembling fingers. Henry gently lifted her shoulders. "Can you hear me?" he asked urgently. Her eyes fluttered slightly, but she was too weak to speak. Henry grabbed his phone immediately. "I'm calling an ambulance," he said. But the puppy suddenly barked again, running to the corner of the room, scratching the floor. Henry followed its gaze, and then he understood. A burned towel lay near the kitchen doorway, a spilled cup nearby. Mrs. Foster must have collapsed while trying to clean up. She had been alone here for hours, maybe days. If this puppy hadn't found help, no one would have known. Henry dialed emergency services immediately. "We need an ambulance now. An elderly woman is unconscious." The puppy curled beside Mrs. Foster, shaking, refusing to leave her side. And Henry realized something incredible. This tiny dog had just saved her life. Minutes later, sirens echoed down Maple Street. Paramedics rushed into the house. They carefully lifted Mrs. Foster onto a stretcher. The puppy barked desperately as they carried her outside, trying to follow. Henry gently held the little dog. "It's okay," he whispered. "They're helping her." The ambulance doors closed, the sirens screamed, and the vehicle disappeared down the street. The puppy trembled in Henry's arms, watching it go. But the fight for her life was only beginning. Days later, inside a quiet hospital room, Mrs. Foster finally opened her eyes. Henry stood nearby, holding the puppy. The nurse smiled softly. She said one word when she woke. Henry looked up. "What word?" The nurse smiled again. "Baby." The puppy jumped from Henry's arms, running to the hospital bed. Mrs. Foster weakly reached out her hand. The puppy pressed its face into her palm, whimpering with relief. "There you are, my baby." Tears filled Henry's eyes because he knew the truth. Mrs. Foster had saved the puppy once, but this time, the puppy had saved her. In a world where people sometimes walk past someone in need, a tiny dog refused to give up. It begged, it fought, it searched for help, until someone finally listened. And because of that, a life was saved.